But you mentioned like, oh my goodness, trying to get something into production and the timing of certain parts and when everything comes together. Like, and you're just doing bespoke builds, right? Um, what's been the biggest challenge there now, taking these things to production and selling them?
Yeah, dude, I heard that quote from Musk, and I can totally agree. Like, as somebody who knows what they want out of the bike, um, designing one that works well is actually pretty easy, and making one prototype is now, like, even the first one rode so darn good. And now that learned everything that I have along the way, I could make one prototype frame that was awesome to ride. You just invest more in some tooling. You make a few parts that are slightly more expensive that make the bike easier to build one of. And if it's a one off, if it's a few $100s more per piece, it's not really a big deal. You're making one prototype, you just want it to be accurate. But when you want to make a whole production run of things that are all within a tight tolerance, all easy to make, because if they're easy to make, then they're easy to make perfect. You don't want a whole lot of complexity into the person who's building your bike's hands. Um, then it's easier for those bikes to be perfect. And the engineering that goes into the production, as well as the coordination of all the pieces that you need to make even just a frame, not a complete bike. Um, Man, that is a whole nother thing. And like, I've learned over these past few months through manufacturing, we offered a pre-sale of our frames. I think we sold 45 of them, and then we made 50. We'll have some extras for warranties in case there's any issues, and coordinating that batch of frames to get made. I even built in a bit of a buffer, and I'm really glad I did, because so many little things along the way are not as simple as I expected them to be. I thought you would, like, when we build a frame, we have tubes, we have CNC parts, we have the rear ends for my bikes are carbon fiber, so they're made in a factory that probably makes most of the bikes that you've ridden before. And coordinating all those pieces to get made at the same time and get done, I really thought was going to be agreeing on the price, agreeing on the lead time, and then just send me the shipping label when it's ready to send. But in between there's so much communication, to keep the project on track, to know that the tolerances are what you expected, just questions about producing the things, um, issues along the way. Like, we ordered the tubes for all of our frames that get shipped to a laser cut tubing vendor who cuts all the miters, with a laser cut machine, so they're all absolutely perfect. And then Frank, the welder who welds all of our frames, can weld those bikes in without having to do hardly any fabrication. So on the way from the tubing supplier to the laser cut place, the box of the crate of tubes was broken. One of them was completely damaged. The rest of them were bouncing around in the box and got surface damage to them, like stuff that we don't want to sell people. So then we had to take those tubes, send them back, get refunded. They didn't want to sell them to us again because they thought we were too picky. I didn't think we were too picky. I thought the box got destroyed in shipping. So we had to find a new vendor to supply us those tubes to then get shipped to the laser cut place. Um, Finally, those arrive for Frank to weld. A lot of the CNC parts we ordered are delayed. Like, places just don't hold their deadlines. Um, the vendor that makes our carbon fiber rear ends told us that they had some other orders come in, and they weren't going to be able to make our or ship our pieces until after the Chinese New Year, which is like the first half of February. And we promised these frames for the customers before the end of February so that they could race in March in North America. And we had to go back to them. Luckily, um, I had somebody who was kind of like a middleman between manufacturing and Asia who's helped me, that was able to explain to them in their language, like, why we really need these in February and they need to ship them before the Chinese New Year, and finally got that back on track. But just, it seemed like there was, with every step along the way, these hurdles that were very stressful to me. And as I said, I really thought it was going to be, hey, I need these within like your proposed lead time. Um, Here's my deposit. I'll I'll send the rest of the money when they're ready to ship. Just yeah, contact me when that date comes, and that would be the end of it. But with manufacturing, I think anybody who's involved with manufacturing would probably listen to this and say, yeah, that's exactly how it works. It was just something that I didn't really expect, and a whole nother part of the puzzle.
Holy shit, I've got a headache listening to that, and I didn't have to deal with it. Absolute nightmare. That is another reason, if you love biking and you're good at it, you're passionate, stick to racing, because that's some real world stuff right there. Like it should be more simple than you think, but it's not. Do you imagine these global bike brands and the COVID, like this COVID situation and the stress of getting, that's just a frame, 50 of them. Imagine you got all these different models and all these different manufacturing lines, and then you got the components that need to be manufactured, and you're ordering those for OEM. I mean, dude, it's no wonder it was a dog show during COVID. And now we're seeing these after effects, and now we're seeing what you spoke about of where the industry's at and these race teams folding.
Yeah, dude, I wouldn't want to do a full bike. Maybe someday, but just the amount of components that need to come together to build a full bike, I can only imagine the lead times of getting everything at the same time to then offer that bike for sale. And if one piece is missing, you can't sell them the bike. Um, and I think, yeah, during COVID, there was just such a demand. Obviously, everybody thought that was going to continue and continue to place big orders. And the manufacturing of a bike, especially on a larger scale with some of the tooling that they need, there's such a lead time that by the time the demand went down, the bikes were still ordered and coming 3 months later or even longer. And then when they arrived in the warehouses, the demand was already gone. So now they're sitting on all this product. Man, that would be even more stressful. If I'd gone through all this to make 100 frames and only sold half of them and nobody wanted the other ones, then I would be really stressed. So I didn't take any risk. I only made as many as people pre-ordered to start with. But man, I could see how doing this with a much larger scale and then in the end having to figure out how to sell them, that would be stressful.
No, insane. And if I understand it correctly, it's just you and your brother. Like, and you haven't taken investment on. It's just you guys basically bootstrapping the production sale of these bikes, and obviously your team, obviously running the team as a business as well. It's just you
Yep.
two.
Yep. So my brother, he wears a lot of different hats. He's made all of our videos. He's not considered himself a videographer. We just thought it'd be easier to buy a camera and learn how to use it than to hire a videographer to do all this. Like that work is really expensive, and um, we thought in the same spirit of a lot of this stuff, like let's just do it ourselves. And he also does all of the finance stuff for frameworks. He helps a lot with coordinating some of these lead times for parts that we need. Does a lot of the communication, built the website, all the sales. So the two of us together do everything. And the way I was able to run my race team is off of the sponsors for the components. So all of our co-sponsors that you see us using are they're funding the racing, the development of the bike. I paid for myself out of like savings that I had. Luckily, it was like in the beginning a low enough bar of entry that I could afford it. Like I think my first prototype frame was like 5 grand, like nothing so crazy that it wasn't like if it never worked out, it wouldn't be. I've wasted 5 grand on dumber things before, so. But then you get a taste and you're like, oh, we can
Like
improve the
what?
bike. I don't know how many dirt bikes or whatever you buy through your career, but you get a taste of like the bike can be better, and then okay, let's make another prototype, let's make another prototype, and then you get 10 prototypes down the line and you start to spend a significant amount of money. So I did all the prototyping out of like savings that I've had, and then now that we're selling the bikes in production, when we took the pre-orders, we took a 50% deposit, and that covered all the manufacturing. And then when we ship the bikes, they pay the second 50%. So it was a way that we were able to do it without any loans, giving up any part of the company. And hopefully, like in selling this first batch, we were able to grow it. And then eventually, like the goal is not to have a huge company. The goal is to just continue to do cool stuff like this. And I can't just keep uh, paying for prototypes myself now that I'm not actually racing for a team anymore. I have my own income stream. So if we can start to sell the frames, it's a win-win because so many people watch our project, are interested in asking for them, and it gives us some money to keep developing and keep growing the project and making more bikes, and hopefully one day invest into the team as well to make that even bigger. Like a lot of race teams, they wouldn't have a third of the budget without their title frame sponsor. So we're kind of growing that, like frameworks racing through all the hard work we're putting in, and then one day we'll have a small bike company that can invest some money back into the team as well. So really, it's just the idea is to keep our project moving forward and keep growing it through offering the bikes for sale.